Ow.
Okay, I got everything cleaned up and blasted off and dry and all that stuff. I'm going to start reassembling this. I'm not going to give you any instructions because I don't know what I'm doing, so I don't want to tell you something incorrectly as I go through doing this. So I'm just going to start putting it back together. I got the information pulled up to see what I need to set stuff at, and hopefully it works. So let's get at it.
Well, hello there. It's me from the future. I decided to do a voiceover here to kind of explain what I was doing because I had no idea I was doing it when I was doing it. But here, as I rewatched through the video, I figured I could explain it to you better. As you can see here, I'm putting on the lower gasket that will attach the throttle body plate to the mid plate, I guess you would call it, or just the body of the carburetor. There was a thing that came in the kit that I wasn't sure what it was. It was like a piece of foam. But if you look back in there, there's this opening spot around the secondary wells of that gasket. And had I read the directions, I would have known that that piece of foam would have gone in there to stop the secondary wells from leaking. It was an old problem on really old Quadrajets, but suppose they were fixed on here, but I guess not. This kit actually came with a bunch of different parts that weren't actually inside the carburetor when I was putting it together. So I just kind of went through it and put the stuff together where it could go when I was doing it. So here, you'll see me screwing around with the clutch here for a long time, or not the clutch, I'm sorry, the choke for a very long time. It was a difficult thing for me to do. Mostly this bracket right here, I'm trying to screw around with it, holding in the needle nose pliers. It has to go in. There's a little hole on the one end that the green part from the choke slides through it. And I left all this in use. You see how long I struggled because it took a long time. I actually think I screwed this up when I was going to originally take it apart and clean it, and I assembled the little arms on the back of the choke body right there in the wrong order. Like I think the green was supposed to be on the bottom. You'll see when I finally managed to get it together. I have to take it all apart here in the future to do it. I just want to try and MacGyver up a little something here with a piece of tape to try and hold that bracket into place to be able to get the choke in there, and it wasn't working out. But this was by far the most difficult thing. As I turned it sideways there, you can look and see that I'd put a little black grommet right in there in that hole. There was originally nothing in there when I took the carburetor apart, so I think it was missing from, I guess this was rebuilt at one point in time. I know it was taken apart and tuned because you can see right there at the front, those notches have been cut out with a saw. That's how you get to the idle air mixture screws to tune the carb. As of recording this, I have yet to get a chance to try and tune the car, but you'll see how it goes through the rest of the video at the end as to what all happened with this rebuild. Okay, I think right now I'm just explaining everything that was going on and how it's a pain in the ass to my wife of what I need to do. I'm starting to get frustrated. But as you can see, I'm still working on it. Riveting stuff. But you can see that little green piece there. That green piece and the metal piece below it are flipped, so that green piece should be on the bottom and that metal kind of bronze piece should sit over top of it the way it slides. I did take pictures with my phone to try and be able to keep up and reassemble everything in the way it was when I took it apart. I did not take enough pictures because I didn't know exactly what I would need to be looking at, and this is one of the areas where I didn't get enough pictures of it to know exactly how it was sitting. I think right here is when I realized though that I did have those two pieces switched over. So I'm going to end up disassembling all of this at one point in time in the near future. Now here's me complaining about it again. I have on my laptop over there a pulled up exploded view of the carburetor that I think was on the Quadrajet Power website. I had that, and I was looking at that as well as watching some other videos best I could to see how they were rebuilding a Quadrajet, even though it wasn't a mechanical one. But see, there you go. I just flipped those two pieces over. That's the way it should be sitting. I originally had them upside down when I took it apart to begin with. And here is, I'm disassembling this little bracket and this lever that goes down to that little tab that's giving me so much trouble to operate the choke on the primary intake butterfly. So as you can see, and this whole video is at, well, not the entire video, but all this assembly part is at 4 times speed. So you can see how much I'm struggling here, trying to get this sorted out. So if you are doing this and you're getting frustrated and it seems like it's taking forever, it's not you. It's just a pain in the ass. It really is. Trying again with the using those pliers. I think this is a point where I'm starting to actually kind of be able to get it in there. There we go. Okay, got that on. All right. I'll just check something else. Reassembling that. So that little piece that I had in my hand right there, it went by really quick, but I'm trying to see where it sits on there right now. I ended up putting this on, I think, upside down and backwards when I was putting this back together. It actually kind of ended up locking up the throttle body blades when you're twisting a little bit, but it would pop over ever so slightly, so I thought it was okay. I ended up having to take the choke off again and not disconnect it to where the whole lever comes out of the body. I was able to wedge, or at least pry out that upside down bracket and reposition it to put it back in. But I did that off camera, so you don't get to see me kind of fix it. Right now I'm putting the little arm that comes in that ticks into the spring on the choke, putting that back in together, and right here I'm putting the body mount screw to hold the choke onto the throttle body. If you hear any noises in the background of this video, my dog is chewing on a bone. Okay, if you watch kind of close, you can see how that isn't moving really smoothly like it should, and it kind of had like this little lock, but it popped over. That's because that arm I put on there was upside down. Okay, here I'm putting the new check ball into the little check ball reservoir, and that little screw that holds it on gets reused. And I'm just trying to kind of wedge it in there. It's a little tight area for your finger. You just drop it in and tighten the screw down. And then I think I just took it off to blow it off with the air compressor because I think there was still a little bit of wetness in there from the carb cleaner. I will be back shortly. Oh, look, there I am. Okay, that throttle divider blade, didn't even need to take it out, but I took it out and cleaned it anyways. So what comes next? Okay, so this little whitewasher here on this fuel filter kind of filler connection, that was destroyed from when I tried. I already replaced the fuel filter in this once to see if that was the cause of the issue. I didn't realize that gasket was destroyed, but that was leaking gas in the car. It is now fixed with this washer. I'm going to pop this back off again really quick because I ended up putting in the old spring to hold the filter in when it came with a new one in the kit. And there also came with this little white kind of split bushing that I figured goes into this, in between this little, I don't even know what you call it, the filler screw area and the filter itself, and sits right down there. I'm about to pop it in, it goes in there. That was not in there when I originally took the carb apart, and it didn't come with the replacement filters I had gotten. So I just put that in there and it fit. And there are no leaks on the car now. So next up is, what do we got going on here? Okay, that is a new little bushing and washer thing for the needle valve that attaches to the float. It is kind of an odd size. It's bigger than any sort of normal screwdriver. So as you can see, I'm just kind of pushing it around in a circle and doing this. Some people have taken, like, modify something else to get it to fit across, but you don't really need to do that. I just had to do a quick edit and assassinate a gigantic hornet that was flying around. But I'm coming back here, and this is the idle air mixture screw, and I'm putting the new O-rings on it. There are 2 different size O-rings. The big one goes towards the back, and the smaller one goes up towards the front. And I did lube them up before I slid them on there. But those will go in the air horn top cover right there in front of that front throttle body plate. Not throttle body plate, the choke plate on the primary intake. And there are different tools that I haven't been able to find that you kind of pop in there that would show you the depth to set it at, but since I didn't have it, you just kind of go with the standard guessing amount of time, amount of unscrewed. What? There is a generic rule of thumb. Holy crap. that you would kind of unscrew it a certain amount of times, and that would be where you would start and adjust it either way. So that's what I did. It seemed to be fine with the standard recommended start point. I think that was maybe 8 turns back from fully seated. Don't quote me on that. You would need to look it up as you are rebuilding this yourself. Right here is, what we got here? Okay, that's the little hanging needle thing goes on the back of the float. There are 2 holes on the back of that bracket of the float. Why they're there, I don't know, because you don't actually hang that needle on it. You just kind of hang it over the edge, and it just kind of dangles there as you're trying to install it. This little C pivot clip thing there that I'm holding my finger on, that is reused from previous, just from the carb itself, and I kind of pried up the top a little bit to make sure that it is, as the air horn is attached down, it puts down extra pressure so it doesn't move it around, because that has to hold it down in there, and then the float floats at a certain depth. If that is too loose, the float won't serve the correct depth. You won't have the right amount of gas in the car won't run. I want to say this was supposed to be set at 9:30 seconds. Again, don't quote me, you'd have to look that up, but the new float was not set correctly, so it was just me trying to compare these two right here and see what it is. The old one, I think the old one was set at whatever needed to be. The new one, I want to say, was down at maybe like 30 seconds or something like that, so I ended up having to bend it up in a little bit to get it to be at the correct depth. If it's too deep, you'll flood. If it's too shallow, you won't even have enough gas to start it up. But this is kind of a hassle because you have to hold that pivot point down flat, push down on the needle end of the float, and then measure the opposite end. And if you don't have that piece down all the way, it won't give you a correct measurement. Now this is the idle air control valve, I believe. I'm screwing back down in here, and this also has to be set a certain way. And as you twist, you bottom it all the way out, and then I think you do 3.5 turns out from bottomed all the way out, and that should be what it is set at. I will end up removing this again here to adjust the float height, because this wasn't helping me out when I was trying to actually adjust the float itself. So I had to take it back off, and I think this piece came with a new spring, I believe. If not, I just reused the old spring. But the spring doesn't do much, just keep upward pressure on that, because it's screwed in a certain distance. So me still checking. As you can see, it's kind of a pain in the butt here to do all this. And I'm now taking it back off to get it back out, to get the float back out, so I can bend the float up to get it at the correct depth. There are 2 little notches in the float arm here that you just kind of bend it around. It bends pretty easily, and that's how you adjust the depth of it. That's set correctly. So now I put the idle air screw back on there, run it all the way back down again, and then back it out to 3.5 turns as is the correct setting for it. So all the way down, and 3.5 turns. And then there's just a little screw that holds the idle air back in place. This little plastic piece here, cover, goes in there and helps just kind of keep that little C looking bracket kind of centered. And these are the little, I'm not sure what they're called, whatever little spring-loaded needle things are here. And this whole thing here is called the power piston. I couldn't remember what it was called when I was taking it apart, but that whole assembly is called the power piston. I believe I reused the spring that was on it. It did not come in the kit, a new one. So I'm just kind of twisting that mixture screw all the way down in there. Well, first of all, I forgot to lube it up. So I'm going to get some, I think some WD-40 to hit it real quick, just to let it go down and out without tearing up those brand new O-rings. Because make sure when it comes to assembling stuff like this, especially dry rubber, that lube is your friend. You want to make sure everything goes in nicely so you don't destroy the brand new stuff you put in there. I'm backing out right here. I didn't really need to do it at this point in time. I could have done it at any point in time, but I think I run it back down anyways and just readjust it again later. I think when I backed it out, the number of turns and it just didn't look correct, but I ended up doing what it said I should have it set at. Okay, right there, I'm putting back in the throttle position sensor. There's a spring underneath it, and that was just reused and just slides back in there. It's nice and easy. This is the new accelerator pump and the spring that goes in there and gets replaced. It just slides right in the hole there. There's a green piece that fell out from under the actuator arm and the air horn that actually controls. It would sit and push down on that little black piece attached to the throttle position sensor. Since that fell out earlier, I had to do a little tip with tape to kind of keep it into place. You'll see it as it's coming up. Right here, I'm just gonna try to get the gasket set up. Had to pull the top of the power piston off to be able to get it in there. Okay, these, I guess, air, I don't even know what you call these things. There's 4 of them. 2 of them got stuck in kind of the body when I took it apart, and the other 2 stayed up in the air horn, so I was just popping those back into the air horn. Here, this replacement gasket around the idle air control, just popping that back on. Pretty straightforward. This right there, that little green piece I just popped in there, that's what I was talking about for the idle air valve. So you just take a piece of tape, put it over top of there, it will hold that little green piece in place as you go and assemble this back together. So that way you're not trying to fumble or trying to squeeze your hands underneath there to get it lined up. Got to remember to put the power piston back together completely. Here I'm not, obviously. There we go, dummy. Got it. And it's just you got to fumble around a few things at once to try and get everything to line up to slide in. And it's not terribly bad, but it's can be a little tricky depending on what you're doing. So if you can look real close, you can see that little green piece underneath that arm that also comes over and pushes down the power, not the power piston, the accelerator pump. I kind of forgot where I took that from, but I'll put it right back in a minute. Now here there are 2 different size torque screws. The smaller headed torque screws go inside the throttle blades there. All the other ones on the outside are the same torque size but a different length, so you just kind of put them back where they went. And there is no torque sequence or spec for this, so you just I just ran them all down in kind of a star pattern as much as I could to just kind of get it all even, and just kind of went hand tight. There's not really any pressure with this at all. Putting these screws back in here, if you were to rebuild this on the car, I mean, have at it, but those, be careful with those 2 because they could drop down in and go straight into your intake, and then you have to take it apart anyways and try and fish this out from who knows what cylinder they fell into. Just tighten it down, tighten down, tighten down. But yeah, just kind of go in a star pattern like you would anything else, a wheel or anything like that, to keep it all closing up evenly. I almost feel like I should put some waiting music on here instead of me trying to just fill dead air. Okay, now, all right, there's that little arm that I took off that attaches to that bracket. It goes down to that pain in the ass arm that attaches to the back of the choke. Now here I'm putting the choke actually back in here, and there is a little tab that kind of goes, or I guess it'd be more like a little hook in the wire that was coiled up in the back of the choke that goes on the tab that connects through to all the other stuff. I actually didn't get that on here the first time as I'm assembling this, so that too I ended up having to fix off camera when I fixed that arm that I put on there incorrectly earlier. And this is the replacement choke that I already did in another video trying to fix the issue, and of course that wasn't the cause of the issue either. Now when you were rebuilding this, you probably could have replaced the sensors if you wanted to. I just kept the same sensors in there. Hopefully that isn't what the actual cause of the problem is. And this thing, I don't know what this is called. I think they're metering valves, maybe metering needles or something like that, but that is the world's smallest torque screw to hold those in there. So yeah, if you look here and you see how that throttle or that choke is wide open, that's because the choke itself did not catch on that little arm inside there. That's why it's stuck all the way open. It should be sit closed and we're about a 1/4 of an inch open. So here I'm just testing the vacuum pull off there. It was holding vacuum when you suck in on it, and that means it's good to go. I'm just hooking this back up. That hose is just a little bit long. I could have trimmed that up a little bit, but I mean, it went on there with just a little bit of effort, so it does much better. That hose came with the kit new. The vacuum secondary was not new. It's just the old one that was on there, but as you can see, it works just fine. Here on the throttle side, I think there's a bracket I have to pop back on there. Yeah, because the throttle is sitting open as it is, but I think there's a bracket that connects from one side to the other, and that's coming up at some point in time when I reattach it. Yeah, that bracket right there connects from the front throttle butterflies to the rear throttle butterflies. And there you can see that flopping around arm. That shouldn't be like that, but that's the one I fix off camera. Okay, this is the, I can't remember what that thing's called, but essentially whenever you put a load on the engine, like if you were to have AC run or something, that would kick on the solenoid and hold the throttle at a slightly higher RPM to make sure that the engine doesn't bog down. That's just popping in the C-clip that holds on that little throttle linkage arm, and then putting back in the air cleaner attachment screw, and that's all it is to put it all back together, aside from what I fixed earlier.
Okay, so I got the carb rebuilt all together outside. Just had to kind of gather all my stuff and run aside quickly because it started raining. A thunderstorm moved in and it's raining sideways now. I'm back in the garage, obviously, and it's like hitting the door, so you may hear that. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to try and get this started up today because the rain coming in sideways. I don't want to get my garage all soaked. So the best I can do now is I'm just going to try and put everything back together and have it ready to go for when it's time to start it up, and hopefully it works. All right, hopefully it'll start up when we get a chance. Okay, different day. Charge battery, hopefully. We're going to start it up and see. Well, we're going to attempt to start it up and see how she runs. Fingers crossed. No gas leak. Still the same issue, obviously, unless it's going to need something to work itself out. The high idle is way too high, clearly. Much better idle. Doesn't smell like it's running either rich or lean. Seems to be kind of good, just not staying running for whatever reason. I can't figure out what that reason is. If anyone knows what would cause this, please let me know. I'm like grasping the straws here. I have no clue. So that was me cutting her off. I'm going to put the air cleaner and stuff back on. And maybe just kind of back it up and down the driveway a bit and see if it does anything. I do think it needs to be tuned a little bit. Maybe the mixture isn't all the way correct, I'm not sure. I didn't touch any of the needles or the idle air valves or anything like that in the rebuild, as you saw. I just kind of cleaned it up and replaced it. Replaced all the stuff that needed to be replaced with the new parts. Have you fired right up though? That's always a good sign. think maybe she just needs to tune. I'm not sure. That wasn't awful. If that fixes the issue, the next thing needs to be done in this car is the radiator's leaking on the driver's side tank. So I'm going to take the radiator out of the white car, and I got a new Champion radiator there. I'm going to switch into that because this, at some point in time, will be getting a version of an LS. I have an idea of what I want it to be, and when it comes time to that, I'll let you guys know. But as of right now, I just kind of want to drive around the way it is, and if that gets that all sorted out and stops the dying thing, and then put new radiator in, we should be good to go. All right. If you have any ideas about anything I may have missed or anything like that, or any questions or whatever, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know. Any bit of help would be appreciated. See you guys next time.